There are certain deaths that people never stop talking about. Not because the person was famous, not because they were rich, but because the official story just didn't sit right with people. And when it comes to Sam Cooke, that's exactly what happened. Depending on who you ask, Sam Cooke was either a victim of a robbery gone wrong, a setup, or a man who became too powerful, too influential, and too outspoken during one of the most turbulent periods in American history. Now, before we get into the controversies surrounding his death, we need to understand who Sam Cooke actually was. Because this wasn't just a singer, this was a man who changed music forever. And by the end of his life, he was becoming something even more dangerous: an independent black businessman, a civil rights advocate, and a man who was beginning to challenge systems that were much bigger than the music industry. So let's start at the beginning. Sam Cooke was born on January 22nd, 1931, in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Like many black families during that period, the Cookes eventually moved north as part of the Great Migration and settled in Chicago. His father was a minister, so naturally, music became a major part of his life early on. And if you've ever listened to Sam Cooke sing, you can hear those church roots immediately. Before he became a star, he sang gospel music. In fact, he became the leader of a very successful gospel group called the Soul Stirrers. At the time, he was already developing a reputation as one of the most gifted vocalists in America. But Sam wanted more. Not because he disliked gospel music, he just simply believed he could reach a larger audience. And eventually, he made a decision that shocked many people in the gospel community. He crossed over into secular music. Today, that doesn't sound controversial, but back then, it absolutely was. Some people felt like he was abandoning gospel. Others thought he was wasting his talent. But Sam saw an opportunity, and he was right. By the late 1950s, Sam Cooke was becoming one of the biggest names in music. Hit after hit, chart after chart, sold out performances. His smooth voice earned him the nickname the King of Soul. And honestly, it's hard to argue against it. Without Sam Cooke, a lot of artists we know today might have a very different sound. His influence can be heard across generations. But what made Sam unique wasn't just his voice, it was his mind. He understood something many artists didn't. The music industry was making millions of dollars, but most black artists weren't seeing much of that money. Record labels owned everything: the songs, the publishing, the rights, the profits. The artist did the work while somebody else got rich. But Sam, he wasn't interested in that arrangement. This is where Sam Cooke becomes really interesting. A lot of people know him as a singer. Fewer people know him as a businessman. And honestly, I think that's one of the most important parts of his story. Sam wanted ownership. He wanted control. He wanted black artists to benefit from their own work. So he created his own record label, his own publishing company, his own management structure. That might not sound revolutionary today, but during the early 1960s, this was a huge deal. A black man controlling his own career and his own money wasn't something many people expected to see. Sam wasn't just becoming wealthy, he was becoming independent. And independence has a way of making powerful people very uncomfortable. As the civil rights movement intensified, Sam Cooke's views began changing as well. For a while, some activists criticized him. They felt he wasn't speaking out enough, that he wasn't using his platform, but things changed. One of the turning points came after hearing about the murder of civil rights leader Medgar Evers and after listening to Bob Dylan's song Blowing in the Wind. Sam reportedly began questioning why he wasn't saying more through his own music. And then he wrote what will become one of the most important songs in American history, A Change Is Gonna Come, which is personally one of my favorite songs of all time. This wasn't just another hit record, this was a statement, a declaration, a reflection of what Black Americans were experiencing at the time. Even today, decades later, people still consider it one of the greatest civil rights songs ever recorded. And what's interesting is that Sam was beginning to step into a larger role. Not just entertainer, not just businessman, but cultural leader. Let's talk about something that happened less than a year before his death. In 1963, Sam Cooke stopped at a motel in Louisiana. He and his wife attempted to check in. They were denied service because they were black. Sam became angry, and honestly, most people would. He was one of the most famous singers in America, rich, successful, respected, and yet segregation still told him he wasn't good enough. The incident ended with Cooke being arrested. The story spread nationwide, and it appears to have affected him deeply because no amount of money or fame could protect him from racism. That reality stayed with him. Now we arrive at the part of the story that people still debate today. December 11th, 1964, Sam Cooke was 34 years old. According to the official version of events, Sam Cooke met a woman named Elisa Boyer at a nightclub in Los Angeles. The two eventually left together. Later that night, Boyer claimed that Cooke became aggressive. She said she escaped from a motel room with some of his clothing, which literally makes no sense. So you left with a man, this man became aggressive, and so you leave with his clothing? How does that work? Moving on. Shortly afterward, Cooke reportedly arrived at the office of motel manager Bertha Franklin. An altercation occurred. Franklin claimed she feared for her life. She shot Cooke and struck him with a broomstick. Cooke died from the gunshot wound. The official ruling: justifiable homicide, case closed, at least officially. Here's where things become complicated. A lot of people never accepted the official explanation. Even members of Cooke's family expressed doubts. There were inconsistencies, questions, conflicting statements, and over time, numerous theories emerged. Some believed it was simply a robbery that spiraled out of control. Others believed there was more happening than authorities revealed. Some suspected organized criminal involvement. Others believed Cooke was targeted because of his growing influence. That is where I stand. Back then, they were taking out civil rights leaders left and right. And here was a man who was not only becoming a cultural civil rights leader, he was also a man who had autonomy. He was in control of everything he put out. Of course, he was going to be signing other artists to his record label. And most importantly, he was in control of his own money. His autonomy made him quite possibly the most dangerous black man in America to a lot of people in the industry, in the government. And so I think that made him more dangerous than a group like the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers, they were doing good. I love the Black Panthers. They were doing good for the community, but they weren't in control of anything. When you have control over your own stuff, you're in an entirely different stratosphere. And so we're in quite possibly one of the most racist times in America, right? And here is this black man that owned everything, that was making a lot of money doing it. And he was not only doing that, he was showing other black people how to do it as well. He's the most dangerous, without a doubt. So they concocted this horrible story, I think, and knew that they were going to get away with it because of the time period that we were in. And they didn't even have to try hard, because this story makes no sense from neither one of these women. And I do want to be very careful here that there is no definitive evidence proving a larger conspiracy, at least to the public. But it's equally true that many people have never been fully satisfied with the official explanation. And that's one reason the conversation continues 60 years later. I think part of the reason people struggle with Sam Cooke's death is because of where he was in life. Think about it. He was only 33. He was making money, building businesses, owning his work, supporting civil rights causes, expanding his influence beyond music. It felt like he was just getting started. And then suddenly, he was gone. When somebody dies young, people naturally wonder what could have been. But in Sam's case, that feeling is amplified because his potential seemed limitless. Even though Sam's life was cut short, his influence never disappeared. His music continues to inspire artists today. His business decisions help pave the way for future generations of black entertainers to seek ownership and control over their careers. And his willingness to speak about the realities facing black Americans helped cement his place in history. When people talk about the civil rights era, names like Martin Luther King Jr. often comes up first, and rightfully so, but music was also a weapon. Art in general is a huge, huge, huge weapon because art reaches places that speeches won't. And Sam Cooke understood that. At the end of the day, what happened to Sam Cooke depends on who you ask. Some people accept the official story. Others believe there are still unanswered questions. What nobody debates is his impact. Sam Cooke wasn't just a singer. He wasn't just a performer. He was a businessman, a visionary, a cultural icon, and a man who believed Black artists deserved ownership, respect, and control over their future. Unfortunately, his life ended before we got to see how far he could have taken those ideas. But maybe that's why people still talk about him today. Not because of how he died, but because of what he was building before he died. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe the official story? Or do you think there are still unanswered questions surrounding the death of Sam Cooke? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I'll see y'all in the next one.